All right, everybody, welcome back to Beans No Ball. Here for the Week 11 recap. Obviously, got a lot of great games to get into. Definitely just another great week of football. Christian, let's just get it right into not even getting no long intro with this one.
Yeah, let's kick it off with the Thursday Nighter, which was unfortunately supposed to be one of our finally a great Thursday Nighter we've had in a long time. But more the story of the game. Joe Burrow is out with the torn ligament on his throwing wrist, on his throwing arm, and he's done for the season. So this is once again, it's another huge blow for the Bengals, and this is Joe Burrow's second season-ending injury at such a young career. I mean, we see all he's accomplished already from his rookie year, where he got that season injury. I believe it was an ACL. His ACL in his rookie year, and then coming back to make it to the Super Bowl, and then another conference championship after that, and then the season where they start off really slow and they finally start to look like you're picking back that resurgence we were talking about earlier this month. But once again, this is just another really, really bad blow for the Cincinnati Bengals, and for the most part, their season's most likely done. In the AFC North race, it's really just right now. It's really up to the Ravens and the Browns right now done too. So realistically, with our predictions, you got the Browns, so it's still up there. But from the looks of it, Cincy, without a doubt, their season looks like it's potentially over.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like we were talking about, in the last video, those injuries are definitely, starting to pile up in Thursday night games. And obviously, Mark Andrews, another one, which, reports have come out. This may not be season ending. There could be a chance that he does come back, but, we will have to wait and see. And we'll move it into the Sunday slate here and start off staying in the AFC North with Pittsburgh and Cleveland. And this one was definitely one of the more underwhelming games of the week. We kind of already expected this, a pretty defensive battle with two underwhelming quarterbacks. And Dorian Thompson-Robinson, definitely, sure, he did underwhelming, but he did enough to keep the Browns in this game. Obviously, as for the Steelers, the offense definitely ran through Jaylen Warren. Obviously, his phenomenal 74-yard touchdown. That coupled with, them driving and letting Boswell get a field goal in the third quarter. It looked like, they were getting the momentum, and the Steelers kind of seemed like they were going to be on their way to a win. But obviously, both offenses stalled out for a bit. It was kind of looking bleak on either side. And in the end, the Browns put Dustin Hopkins in position to win the game. And obviously, he delivered. And, the Browns are 7-3. Obviously, nobody expected that, especially without their franchise quarterback. Definitely can say, my pick is definitely looking at a good spot right now. We'll just have to wait and see how the season progresses, with obviously a very strong division here in the North.
Yeah, without a doubt, the Browns have a really long run to get here. And, the prediction could still stand by you, but it really just all depends on how Dorian Thompson-Robinson plays out through the remainder of the season. Now moving on to the next game, which was a pretty nice NFC North battle that was, pretty close to what we really expected. The Detroit Lions, they walked away out of here with a one-possession game against this Chicago Bears team. And, Justin Fields coming back from that injury, where, I thought, he was probably done, but, came to reports that he's healthy now, which, we saw. But, it's probably the same old Justin Fields when it comes to passing. Really have some mid attempts here. He did get a touchdown pass, which, to say the least, but really he got most of the work done on the ground. And, he was the leader at the rush attack, and looking at this Bears team, they really had no one here, especially with Khalil Herbert coming out of, I believe it was IR or something like that. But he did get this, finally get the start on here. And I really couldn't pick up anything. Really was averaging about like 2-3 yards to carry. Justin Fields once again had to put the workload on the rush, which, that's what he's really known for, and that's really what kept the Bears kind of in this game. And then for the Detroit Lions, Jared Goff starting to look like 2019 Goff here. 3 interceptions to this Bears defense. That's really what kept them in the game here. This Bears team, that defense was kind of picking up a bit, but obviously the Detroit Lions, they finished strong out in the fourth quarter. As for the Lions, they're 8-2, which, is another surprise team that's really, really up there. And, really contending against Philly, for that number 1 seed after today's Monday Nighter, which we will discuss that later on. But Detroit Lions, is there some worry to go around here that, Jared Goff's not really looking like he's supposed to? I wouldn't worry too much. I still feel Jared Goff can pick it up once again, let on this whole team what Dan Campbell has done. But, it just kind of looks ugly since, they kept it really close with the Bears.
Yeah, exactly like that. 3 interceptions to probably one of the worst defenses in the league. It definitely is cause for alarm, but even in a really shitty game, they got the win, and that's what matters most. So we'll see how the Lions can fare moving forward. But of course, we'll keep it in one of those NFC North teams and the Chargers and the Packers here. And this definitely can be made for the argument that probably one of Jordan Love's most complete games of this season. He definitely definitely just kept up with Justin Herbert. Obviously, when we look at Herbert, he's just been doing so much, and the team as a whole has really been disappointing him. We look at more than anything that crucial drop by Quentin Johnston that would have been, I believe, a 75-yard game winner. That obviously the drop that did end up being the difference. And I guess more than anything, we got to also look at Brandon Staley. That's easily gonna be he's got to go, man. That we talked about it since last week. I mean, we've been talking about it since forever, and we saw his post-game presser that already getting into with the reporters. I mean, obviously they're going to be asking what the situation is going to be with him calling plays. Clearly the defense is struggling, so maybe there is a need for change of scenery. If he can take that criticism, it's clearly time for some change of scenery there. But we'll just have to wait and see what the Chargers do. They're definitely in heavy danger of missing out of the playoffs, and definitely need some much needed help for Justin Herbert.
Yeah, without a doubt, Stanley, he's got to go out the season. Sure, yes, that final play with the drop with Quentin Johnston that, was potentially the game winner. A lot of mistakes there, but regardless, it is Brandon Staley that's holding a lot of potential for these players on this Chargers team. Now moving on to another AFC battle, which was, another shocking one, but the Raiders and the Dolphins, the Dolphins keeping it close in this one in just one possession game as well. Is there a lot of worrying to draw up with this Dolphins team? I mean, we see, look, they're known to beat up bad teams, and they're known to lose against these good teams. The Raiders, they were 5-5 coming into this game where, they're just right there in the middle, you could say, right? So it could literally either been they would have blown them out or keep them close. And in this situation, it kept a really close game. I mean, the Raiders defense, as much as I used to, bash on this defense for being horrible, they stepped it up for the most part this season in most games. But realistically, in this one, Aiden O'Connell, he just really wasn't getting it done. That O-line, it was all over the place as well. But those 3 interceptions, it's what really got to him, especially against this Miami defense. And he stepped it up over the long run. And then Tua, once again, he had another great game. I mean, aside from that pick, he had a pretty decent game. Run attack, the rushing game for the for the Dolphins was pretty okay. But towards the end, it was starting to look a little chippy. I mean, Tua could have put the game away already, but mistakes happen. But it happens here and there. Aiden O'Connell and the Raiders, they had an opportunity. I mean, he missed a big time throws. I think a couple to Devontae, and I think another one to I cannot recall, but I think it was that one bomb to the end zone that was just it was a bomb. Don't get me wrong, but triple coverage, you really can't go anything from there. But I wouldn't worry too much about the Dolphins. That's really what I'm trying to say here is I wouldn't really worry too much about them, especially with how they're really looking. Maybe a little worry here and there, but coming towards December, which I'm going to bring them again, I feel that that's really the month they really got to step up. They really want to get a tough seed in the playoffs.
Yeah, and obviously we see that defense really stepping up. Really, Jalen Ramsey coming into his own with those 2 interceptions. So if everything starts clicking, like you say, December football could be a big piece for the Dolphins. So we'll move it back into the NFC with a big divisional clash in the Giants and the Commanders. And this one definitely went a lot different than what we would have expected. Sure, we expected a pretty mediocre showing for the 2 of these teams. But, I mean, the Giants obviously came out with this. Definitely didn't expect it, especially seeing how good the Commanders have been playing. A lot of good teams definitely would expect them to just steamroll the Giants. But Tommy DeVito with definitely the game of his life right here. Almost 250 yards and 3 touchdowns. And of course, on the other hand, Sam Howell, probably one of his more disappointing games apart from that Bills game. Got 3 interceptions. That pick 6 at the end really was the one to seal it. And, at the end of the day, as another coach that we've been talking about, Ron Rivera, after a really ugly loss like this, I was making the argument, we were making conversation about this on Sunday. He really should be on his way out at this point, to really, hopefully to get a look at Bieniemy. But we will just wait and see. It probably gonna last another couple weeks, but at the end of the day, just a really disappointing loss for the Commanders that definitely still had probably a slight glimmer of hope to make the playoffs. A loss like this really is gonna kill those chances.
Yeah, without a doubt, this was really another surprising game for me. I mean, I didn't really expect the Giants to walk away with this one, especially like how you said how good the Commanders were. But they still have some hope in them. But it just all depends whether Ron Rivera can either step it up or if his tenure is going to be done within the season. And now moving on to my game, which I'm not really much to say here, but for the most part in the beginning, it looked a little chippy. I mean, McCarthy's play calling was a little off, to say the most. I mean, we weren't getting CD involved. CD, from all of the historic games the past couple of weeks he's been having, he was pretty quiet. He was pretty quiet yesterday, but I mean, realistically, like when we're really looking at it, McCarthy was, like I said, in the first quarter and the second quarter, where they're drawing up, some like stupid wildcat positions, because we're not really known to run the wildcat as much, and we see what happens when we run the wildcat. There's really no success in that, and then some trick plays here and there. It's nice to see, but it's not really going to do what really can't execute it properly. So that was kind of a little something to worry about, especially against this Carolina team, because before the second half, the only reason this game was close was because Carolina kept shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, twice on third down they committed. I think it was the horse collar, and then the face mask was former Cowboy Xavier Woods, and then the roughing the passer on Dak, and then the third hand, and then the second half the pass interference that was already on third down. So really, Panthers were just shooting themselves in the foot. And then obviously, after that, defense took over, and then obviously we saw the rest of the game. Once again, it was a blowout. But really, my main takeaway from here is, it's Jerome Bland. I mean, I think now, it's a potential that he could be up there for a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. And I probably should have said this, a couple weeks ago, but really didn't have it in the mind, especially with the success with Myles Garrett and TJ Watt. But Jerome Bland, he's really another guy that's really stepping up for this defense after the Trayvon Diggs injury. So he could really potentially up there for a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. That's really nice to see.
Yeah, and obviously, with that Cowboys defense, when you're thinking Defensive Player of the Year, you're always going to think Micah Parsons, but definitely, four pick sixes, 6 total interceptions, definitely gonna make a name for himself. He'll definitely be a finalist for that award. And we'll move it into Tennessee Jacksonville. Obviously, another game that we probably could have expected to go this way, but we got one big storyline, of course. Calvin Ridley makes a triumphant return on the stat sheet. Obviously, I believe he got a little over 30 points on fantasy. A lot of people were probably left him on his bench. Christian, obviously, you were one of them. We will definitely have a lot more of that for Sunday's video. But, all fantasy jokes aside, definitely a great. I mean, this is big for the Jaguars to finally get him more involved. Finally see him to be in that position that we expect him to be as a wide receiver one in this team. And, obviously bouncing back from a really ugly loss against San Francisco, this was a very necessary win. And, obviously we see, with Houston, that we'll get into that in a little bit. They really do need to keep pace in that AFC South. And, I mean, as for the Titans, I mean, they waited too long to show up. Obviously, they did get a really nice bomb to D-Hop, got a big man touchdown with an offensive lineman near the end. Sure, 2 touchdowns in the fourth really wasn't enough, but, at the end of this, basically is kind of how we would have expected this one to go.
Yeah, I don't know. Aside from my saltiness, benching Ridley, it finally seemed for him to finally step up, especially against the Titans team who looking iffy. But this is really great to see if he can really step it up for the Jacksonville Jaguars come postseason. And now moving on to another pretty great game, another really close game that I really, wasn't really expected, but kind of even really put in there. I mean, Kyler Murray, once again, getting another start from here, and that's kind of the reason why the Cardinals were kind of able to keep up in this game. And, regardless of what happened, Kyler, it's still nice to see that he's out here playing once again after that injury, finally getting the groove once again. Sure, that O-line was kind of, once again, iffy, allowing 3 sacks for Kyler. But, it's still nice to see, get him prepared for next season if the Cardinals decide to keep him, which, I would really hope so. That would be the wiser decision to finally build around him, which, what we've been talking about these past couple weeks. And, CJ Stroud, for, being perfect when it came to his touchdown interception ratio, he threw 3 picks yesterday, which is kind of the reason why the Cardinals were kind of in this game to begin with. And I wouldn't necessarily call the Cardinals defense, that horrible, because look, even before the return of Kyler and before the departure of Dobbs, like I said, when we talked about Cardinals, they're able to stay in games. They're able to keep it close regardless, which is, nice to see from the defense of the Cardinals. But, CJ Stroud, there was a couple moments where he kind of, blew it away. In the fourth quarter, it was just purely defense, Both teams were shut out in the fourth quarter. Houston already had the lead, let alone with the Cardinals already leading at halftime. But, once again, I still have no word for CJ Stroud for the way he's been playing this season. Already people talking him to the MVP conversation. He's already got the rookie offensive player of the year in the lock, regardless. But coming to the MVP position, and then another guy to look at is Tank Dell, who I've really been high on this season. That 1-2 punch with Stroud and Dell. That's really great to see. So once again, not too much worrying for this Houston team. They still got a lot of way to go, but Stroud is able to pick it up out of this game.
And obviously, they sure an ugly win at the end of the day, but I mean, a rookie quarterback's always going to have those tough outings, and he still pulled it out. So that's obviously great signs for the Texans here. And we'll move it into probably one of the more predictable outcomes of the week here in the Buccaneers and the Niners. Obviously, ended up in a pretty big blowout, but I mean, hey, Baker and the Bucs, they kept it closer they could. Kept it at a one possession game going in a half, but obviously, predictably, the Niners really did pull it away, turn it into a blowout. I mean, that Niners defense is looking phenomenal. And obviously, we've been talking about it. The acquisition of Chase Young definitely plays a big part in this. He's already really starting to mesh well in. Obviously, we already saw this since last week against Jacksonville. And, it's starting to feel more and more. I mean, sure, against a lesser opponent here. But, I mean, still fact remains he is really fitting into his own. And of course, we always talk bad about him. We're always talking crap about, the system quarterback narrative, but definitely going to show some love for Brock Purdy here, becoming the first Niners quarterback since Joe Montana to put up a perfect passer rating. I mean, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, just a phenomenal showing for him. Just everyone on the Niners really lighting up the stat sheet. And sure, you could say it is the Buccaneers. It is one of those pretty iffy defenses. But, I mean, at the end of the day, this was, coming off of a couple weeks ago with that 3-game losing streak. This is definitely something that it's scary to see. The Niners are definitely back on track, and really puts the NFC back on notice.
Yeah, I wouldn't really call this win too much of a pretty horrible win, especially with you should call it close, whatever you want, but yeah, without a doubt, it could seem like the 49ers are back to this, and Brock Purdy starting to look like the quarterback he used to be playing. And now moving on to another AFC East divisional matchup, which I kind of expected a different outcome, but once again, the Jets and Zach Wilson continue to plunder down into the trenches, man. I mean, I thought this Jets defense was going to take advantage of Josh Allen, but I was completely wrong. Josh Allen once again bounced back from that horrible game last week, and still threw a pick to the narrative. It still lives on, regardless. But obviously, it's going to get overshadowed by him coming back, and a lot of people saying like, oh, but it's the Jets, blah blah blah. I mean, come on, the Jets, they're arguably a top 5 defense, and they're the reason why they somehow had potential in the playoff run and why they've been staying in games. But obviously, the Jets defense really they couldn't keep doing it. They couldn't stay. They're staying out too long. Zach Wilson and that offense wasn't really getting it together. Once again, sure, you can blame on Nathaniel Hackett all you want with how that play calling is, but Zach Wilson, I mean, come on, 15 pass attempts for only seven completions for 81 yards. I mean, for a quarterback for that whole game, I mean, come on. We expected it. We really did expect it, and and then let alone that O-line allowing 5 sacks, which really wasn't gonna help anything regardless. And Breece Hall was supposed to be their main guy on offense, other than Zach Wilson. Both of those guys, they couldn't get anything done. Zach Wilson, nothing in the pass game. Breece Hall, nothing. The Buffalo Bills, they're 6-5. They still have a lot of way to go to it with already 5 losses in this powerhouse of an AFC conference. With the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Browns. It's really looking bad, and the Dolphins. So really, if they really got to make a push, they really got to make a strong, really strong with this offense. And Josh Allen got to lay on the picks if they want to make a long run this in the playoffs.
Yeah, and obviously, of course, I was gonna throw in that he was benched at the end of the game for Tim Boyle, and he now is dropped all the way down to 3rd string. Obviously, do expect him to probably be off the roster by this offseason, but there will definitely be more to come from there. And of course, let's get into my Rams game here. I'll just say from the start, I called basically, what I expected. We're looking at the way the Seahawks have been struggling, and it was exploited here. And I mean, sure, as for the Rams defense, they did look shaky in the clutch. Obviously, they basically allowed Geno to come all the way back and really put them into a position to win. Sure, I mean, you have your own reservation about that field goal, but I mean, it was a 55-yarder. It was no gimme. But big thing about that drive, I will give my props to Geno Smith. I was bashing on him, about the one and done type type situation I was expecting him to be. But, you know, definitely going to eat my words there. You know, he played a phenomenal game and, you know, really, you know, put the Rams on notice here. And going back to the defensive side for the Rams, you know, Derion Kendrick, another guy that, you know, I'm really always pretty rough on. But hey, you know, he is kind of really succeeding in that cornerback 2 role. Obviously got his first career interception here. You know, as much as I say, you know, I really do get excited to really see him, you know, really come into his own and really, I mean, finally start to grow as a player. You know, eventually he will be that cornerback 1 type player. But, you know, it's all going to be just to wait and see. But, you know, he definitely has all of that potential. And Matthew Stafford, you know, I've been talking about, you know, when is it going to be time to hang it up and all that. You know, that big hit that led to the interception, I was already, you know, in my head, you know, talking about, you know, just let Carson Wentz come in, you know, let's just ride it out with him. But he definitely shut me up in that last drive. You know, sure, it ended up in a field goal, but it ended up being the game-winning drive. And, you know, only 2 games back from the playoffs, you know, there's definitely some hope. But, you know, I'm not really gonna get my hopes too far up at this point.
Yeah, see a lot of bright spots with that Rams team. I mean, sure, yeah, you can make the argument they got billed on that final drive with the shank kick by Myers because Geno did, you know, get it done where he could, but, you know, still well executed by the Rams that game. And now moving on to another game, which, you know, was really expected it to be pretty good, especially with from the looks of these 2 teams. The Pastrana against the resurgent Russell Wilson. I mean, the Broncos, man. I mean, they're finally doing it. And I mean, from how they're playing, they're making my bracket not look as bad as usual. I mean, I had them going the 7th seed, going 11-6, I believe, which is, you know, 5-5. It's very doable, very doable. But, you know, Russell Wilson, even though when they were 3-5 at one point, he was having a great season. And I called this in our season preview. You know, I wasn't gonna let last season depict his career going forward. He's really been having an under the radar season because no one's really looking at him because when it's the Broncos with how they are. But now that he's actually having a resurgence with his team, he's finally getting looked at, and it's very nice. I mean, sure, yes, still his main targets Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton. They're kind of on and off, especially Jeudy. You know, they can have their bright spots there, a couple glimpses here and there, but sometimes they're just iffy sometimes. But, you know, in this game, it was a really great game. They got it done where they really needed to get it done where they really needed to. And, you know, their tail hopes, they're very much still alive. And as for the Vikings, I mean, Josh Dobbs, I wouldn't say his insanity runs over. I mean, I think this game was finally going to prove, you know, some adversity coming to a Broncos team that's finally having some hope and some resurgence. So I was really going to show. Really expected a pretty good game. I really expected a game for Joe Burrow to really step up. But, you know, he was very quiet this game, only getting 3 catches for 44 yards. And, you know, kind of put me down in fantasy a bit. But, you know, obviously, that's jokes aside, you know, I really expected a good game for him, but, you know, obviously it really came short, especially with this Broncos team, and because of that defense, you know, with the leaders of Patrick Surtain. So, you know, Broncos, really good to see that they're finally coming back, and Russell Wilson finally looking like his old self.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what we really got to see is, you know, back to Josh Dobbs. You know, I mean, we've seen him, you know, succeed so much. You know, he was bound to, you know, have one of these type games, and, you know, against a really resurgent Broncos defense, you can definitely see why. You know, as you said, you know, the signing run is far from over, and we'll just have to wait and see. He's got a pretty favorable matchup in the Bears coming up, so we'll see what he can get done. And I see we'll close it out with the Monday Nighter. Obviously, just got wrapped up right here, and I mean, I know you got a lot to say about this, and I'll get right into the point that you want to get into. But, you know, this was definitely a tale of 2 halves. You know, the Chiefs were just absolutely dominating in the first half. You know, the defense definitely stepped up. You know, the group for the Chiefs that, you know, we always kind of, you know, keep them in the lower part. You know, they're one of the more mediocre defenses in the league. Definitely can be a liability for Kansas City. And this time, you know, they were really shutting down, you know, one of the top offenses in the league. And then, you know, obviously, if we also look at, you know, their O-line, which we also, you know, always talk about their O-line also being pretty mediocre. 121 yards rushing in the first half, you know, definitely a lot of credit to them there. But, you know, obviously going into that second half, you know, I mean, sure, the defense was still solid, but, you know, Jalen Hurts started looking like, you know, the Jalen Hurts we're used to, and he started meshing well with that whole offense. Everyone just really started, you know, actually playing like the Philly team we're used to. But of course, it was that final drive that everyone's gonna look at. You know, Kansas City definitely had that shot to win it, especially on that Marquez Valdes-Scantling drop. I mean, that's something that we've definitely gotten used to with Valdes-Scantling. I mean, ever since his time in Green Bay. You know, he's always had that problem with drops, and it just gets worse and worse here. Then of course that grounding call at the end. You know, don't usually see Mahomes make little mistakes like that, but you know, at the end of the day, you know, Philly's defense stepped up. So I mean, can't say much more there. And I mean, look, they're 9-1. Can expect much. You know, it's basically what we expected here. You know, my takes on their defense is looking a little better. You know, their secondary stepped up, so we'll have to wait and see how much they can keep that up moving forward. Of course, we will keep it, move that right into our predictions, as you know that wraps up our week 11 recap. And Christian, with our 4 disagreements, I took them 3-1 here. So get me up 4 on you in our overall standings. I finally hit triple digits in our overall predictions. So we'll just have to wait and see here. Christian, I'll just let you get started for the Week 12 preview, and obviously in the holiday week.
Yeah, so Thanksgiving is right around the corner, and you know, nothing without Thanksgiving without some football. So let's get it right to it with my game, with us going with hosting the Commanders. Once again, it's gonna be another brief one. I mean, but not too much. I mean, look, this is a Commanders team that shouldn't be looked on once again. Sure, yes, Dak and the Cowboys, you know, they're known to beat this Commanders team and this whole NFC's team. I mean, he's like 20-something with like less than 10 losses against the East, and with the Commanders team, you know, Dax usually does well against them. But once again, this is one team that I really wouldn't look down upon. Sam Howell, which you know, in the beginning of the season, I had my things about him, but as soon as he was starting to step up a bit, he's getting to this Washington team, and he's keeping him in games. But you know, just the mistakes at the end of the games that really keeps him low. But you know, I have no worry, and especially we want to get that 1 seed. That's really a stretch now after Philly's win. There's still hope, but it's really all depends on Dallas. Just a couple of things, you know, we gotta start out strong. McCarthy's play calling has to be consistent this whole game. Defense got to be on their heels and get CeeDee Lamb, you know, involved once again. No more stupid play calls that, you know, that runs Wildcats and do none of this and that. You know, McCarthy's got to be on his heels in this game if we want to, you know, have a consistent at the 1 seed. And as for my highlight game of the week, I will be highlighting Cleveland and Denver. I feel like this is going to be probably the best game of the week. I mean, we have the Cleveland Browns who are exceeding expectations, and then the Denver Broncos who are having a resurgence. I mean, my really let down on this is how far Dorian Thompson can really take this team. I think that's the spot in this team that's really going to determine if they're going to make it far or not. Because this defense, it's perfect. It's great. It can get the job done. That offense, you know, with Watson, without Watson, it really couldn't click here and there. Even though with Watson, you know, starting to get up there, but still flaws here and there. But, you know, with Dorian Thompson, that's really going to be the story of the remainder of the season with the Browns, of how far he can take them. You know, our last week's game, it was a little iffy, like we went over. But regardless, Browns, it could be a possibility. But with Denver and the resurgence of Russell Wilson and that defense that's looking really great as well, this is going to be a really huge defensive battle. And realistically, it's really going to depend on both quarterbacks, whether Dorian Thompson and Russell Wilson can get the job done.
Yeah, obviously 2 big wild card hopefuls. This game will have heavy playoff implications and definitely going to be a great one to watch. So I'll move it into my game here. And I mean, this Arizona Cardinals game, you know, early on, you probably didn't expect it to be much, but now we see their slight little resurgence, and obviously Kyler Murray really playing some great ball in his first 2 games back. Definitely not the easy cakewalk we would have expected. Even without Kyler Murray, you expect this to be a pretty trap game. And I mean, like, at the end of the day, I do still expect the Rams to come out with this game, you know, not nothing to put them just over, but you know, right now, I mean, you know, coming off of a pretty big win, obviously against Seattle, and you know, everything seems to be going good now. I know I kept talking about it last week, expecting Kyren Williams to be back. This week, it now is confirmed Kyren Williams is back off IR, and he will finally make his long-awaited return. So if the O-line can, obviously, I always say, if that O-line can you know, stay solid, you know, I definitely expect Kyren Williams to be a big factor here, and you know, hopefully the defense can contain Kyler, because that's going to be my only main concern. But you know, above all else, you know, I really do expect, I'm hoping, you know, if Cooper doesn't have to miss time this week, hopefully they could take advantage of probably, you know, less high talented defense, and hopefully can really get Puka and Cooper to really mesh well into that, you know, wide receiver duel we expect to see. And as for my highlight game, keeping it in division here with the 49ers and the Seahawks, the primetime Thanksgiving game. And obviously this one, another big playoff implication here with, you know, the Niners now easily cemented in that top spot in the NFC West after the Rams give them a little help here beating the Seahawks. But Expecting the Niners to pull away here. Obviously, we definitely see Brock Purdy back into the form we expect to see him in. You know, call it that it's because he has his assets back, but it doesn't matter. You know, they're winning, so that's all the Niners care about. And I mean, sure, I will take back all the stuff I said about Geno Smith, but you know, I expect a good game here, but I'm gonna have to say, you know, a pretty sound Niners win. Of course, that is going to wrap us up for our quick little Week 12 preview. See, we will see get you guys a couple more videos, well, at least one more video before Thanksgiving. But you know, obviously, if you guys don't catch that, obviously gonna wish you guys a very happy Thanksgiving. And thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys real soon.